Hey everybody, welcome back to When Harry Met Board Games. I am Harry, and before we go any further, please don't forget to hit the like button down below and subscribe to our channel if you're interested in some more board game related content. And if you don't like this video, that's okay. Just leave a comment down below and let me know why. Today, we're going to be covering my top 10 favorite Reiner Knizia games. That's quite a mouthful. So yeah, the top 10 games of Reiner Knizia. And why, you ask, in particular Reiner Knizia? Well, a week ago, I just recorded my top 10 board game designers of all time. And Reiner Knizia ranked very highly on that list. I'm not going to say why. If you want to catch that information, please click on the link below and check out my top 10 favorite board game designers of all time. But today, I wanted to zero in on Reiner Knizia's influence in my board gaming experience. Now, I mentioned last time in the other video that I've played 33 different Reiner Knizia designs. And Reiner Knizia is probably the most prolific board game designer of all time in the sense that he's designed more games probably than any other board game designer, at least officially published games. Hundreds upon hundreds of games. And I've had the benefit of playing 33 of them. Now, while I've played 33 of these games, there's a lot of games of his that I felt very meh about, right? Some that I even didn't like at all. But when making this list, I did come up with a solid short list of about 15 games of Reiner Knizia that I really like a lot. Some of them I like every day of the week. Others, you gotta catch me in the right mood to like, and that's probably why they didn't make it onto this top 10 list. So today we'll be covering the ones that actually did. So without any further ado, we go on to my number 10. And this is a game that nobody talks about, and it's technically a tie for two games here. And that's Minotaur Lords and Scarab Lords. And this is basically the same game. It's the same system of games. You can combine these two games. And these both were published by Fantasy Flight Games. And they are published in the early 2000s. And basically what this is Reiner Knizia's response, his answer to Magic the Gathering and CCG style games. This is kind of like the early work, I believe, in Reiner Knizia's process of working towards his Blue Moon design, which I still have not played Blue Moon, but it's a very popular game of his. And again, it's just this idea of you know, two players going at it, controlling opposite sides, you know, somewhat asymmetric sides, and just trying to vie for power and position. And in this game, basically, what you're doing is you have this little board which represents the different regions that you're trying to control, right? So you have this border right here, and then you have 3 different regions on this side and 3 different regions on that side. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to be the player who controls 4 regions, but it can't just be any 4 regions. It has to be at least 2 on one side of the board, which represents like one side of Egypt, or in the case of Minotaur Lords, Greece, and 2 other regions out of the 3 in the other side of the board. So even if you control 4, but it's not 2 and 2 respectively, then you cannot win the game. And that's what you have to have. And basically at the beginning of your turn, you need to have control. So a player, the other player still has a chance if you temporarily gain control of 2 and 2, the other player still has a chance to respond and take that control away from you. So basically it is area majority, which people know I like. It's a further development from games like Lost Cities and Battle Line, right? These kind of games that Reiner Knizia was working on in the early 90s, and by the late 90s, and by the early 2000s, he had evolved and developed it into this more advanced design. And you have the cards here, and it's interesting because each of the cards has a different number, right? And that's basically how much power they have. And that indicates who has the majority on each side, right? If you have more power cards on that region, on your side of the board, than your opponent, then basically you have control. But what's interesting is you also have a number here in this little star, in this little circle here. Looks like a star, more like it. And it's a number ranging from 0 to 2. And basically, this game is broken up into different phases. Each of your turn has a 0 phase, a 1 phase, and a 2 phase. And the cards that you play have to be played in each of those specific phases that it's recorded on the card. So sometimes you might have two great cards that you want to play on a turn, but you can't play them because they're both numbered for the same phase. So you got to choose, correctly and wisely as to which one you want to lay down the table. Really, really cool. Really tit for tat, back and forth, tug of war style game. Really, really appreciate this game. I am a big fan of Magic the Gathering, and those style of games have always appealed to me. So because of that, Scarab Lords and Minotaur Lords was going to rank highly on my list. And again, these are games that are not really highly talked about. I'm not even sure if they're really quite in print, but if you can catch a copy of this, it might be a worthwhile investment. Now we move on to my number 9 Reiner Knizia game of all time, and that is Tigris and Euphrates. And this edition is reprinted by Fantasy Flight Games. It's a recent reprint from a few years ago. And I know that for most people, Reiner Knizia's #1 design is Tigris and Euphrates. It might not be for you. I get it. Don't inundate me with comments about how it's not yours. I get it. But at the end of the day, on BoardGameGeek.com, it is by far his highest ranked game. Therefore, lots of people have to think that it's his best. As for me, I think, as of now, that it is his 9th best game. And I'm sure as I play more games of Reiner Knizia's, this game will slowly start to creep out of my top 10 and maybe even my top 15, because this game is a brilliant design, but it is a little too conflict heavy for a Euro game. I enjoy conflict, but this in essence is a Euro game. It's an abstract game, and sometimes abstract games can have lots of cutthroat type of conflict. But the abstract nature of the game and the conflict keep me from liking it more. But I like the idea of you're placing tiles down, and they're different colored tiles, and each of the colored tiles represents a different sphere of civilization, right? You have, you have your kings, and you have your markets, and you have your farms, and you have your temples. And it's really, really cool because each time you play down a tile of a color, if you have a leader on that region that matches that color, you'll score a point in that color. And also, you're trying to have majority in these different kingdoms that are being established throughout the board. I like area majority. I like tile placement. And then again, it has the famous ingenious mechanism where it was innovated, where your final score is actually your score in the color that you score the least of. So it makes you try to build evenly, right? I actually appreciate that in games. Some people might feel like that's pigeonholing them, like they cannot, explore the possibilities in just one color. The game kind of restricts and confines their strategy. I don't feel that way. I feel like you need to work your strategy around the limitations of the game, right? And that could be a very stimulating, enriching process. So I like that aspect of the game. Love it. Like its implementation here a lot more than in a game like Ingenious, which I just feel is too light for me. But again, sometimes the conflict nature makes it tough, because here's the thing about Tigris and Euphrates. More often than not, if you're losing the game, you're not having, or at least in my opinion and the people I've played with, you're not having a good time. When you're winning, you're having a good time. Because quite often when you're winning, it shows. You feel it, right? Even though the end score ends up being a little bit close because of, again, the ingenious mechanism where you're scoring your least scored points, it makes it feel close. But at the same time, while you're playing the game, it doesn't feel close sometimes, because you might not have that many more points in your least color, but you're racking up so many points in your other colors that it makes the other person feel very intimidated, right? So that's one thing about Tigris Euphrates. And for me, a sign of a great game is how much fun you can have even in losing. Don't quite feel that with Tigris Euphrates. Really good game. Like it a lot. Oh, just falls shy of me being able to say it's a great game. Now we move on to my number 8 game of Reiner Knizia. And this is another game that nobody talks about, and it is Rhinelander. And I've mentioned this game, I forgot for what list. I think it was my top 10 older games list. Games published from 1996 to 2000. Please check out that video if you have not. And I showed the board, and this game is out of print, and this is a very old game. This is published in 1999, and it hasn't really been rebranded or reprinted. And here you got this ugly board, in every sense of the word. It looks even uglier in person, but I enjoy this game. This is an area majority game where you're playing down numbered cards, and the number of the card you put allows you to place one of your knights on a space with the corresponding number, and each number has 3 spaces that correspond to it. And your knights are just these ugly little abstracted circular discs. Now you do see some nice pieces here for your dukes. Your dukes, who are less often used in this game, they are nicely represented. But your knights, again, are just these abstracted pieces. And you could always, you know, fish around for upgrades and ways to trick up your game. But the way the game comes in the box, very inferior component quality. But the gameplay is so cool. Again, we're talking about area majority. I enjoy area majority. And interesting because Reiner Knizia kind of borrows from, you know, Sid Sackson's acquire, you know, mechanism, where bigger areas, in the case of Sid Sackson's acquire, it was like hotels, right? Hotel companies. Bigger areas here, it's your duchies. They kind of swallow up and merge with smaller areas, take over, and the owner of the smaller area gets a compensation for that. And that's exactly what's happening throughout the game. You're merging duchies and in the game as duchies, you know, connect to one another, they become one. Kind of similar to Tigris and Euphrates, where 2 different kingdoms can merge and become one. And what happens is you check for majority, and whoever has the majority is the new duke of that region. But whoever loses, who had the minority in the duchy, they collect points, and their points are equal to I think you always get an automatic point just for it being a duchy, and you get a couple other points based on the buildings that your duchy touched, because there's a bunch of spots here for different types of buildings. You have cities, you have churches, you have castles, and all these give you different types of benefits. The castles make you stronger, you know, increase your chances of not losing that duchy to somebody else. The churches give you bishop tokens, and the more bishop tokens you have, eventually you get control of the archbishop, which is represented by this ugly looking pawn here. And the archbishop basically gives you the power to, you know, use a played card, a numbered card that's already been occupied, because usually when you play a numbered card that's been occupied, it's a dud, you can't do nothing with it. But the archbishop lets you play an already used numbered card and use it to replace an opponent's knight with one of your knights, and therefore it could swing things as far as who has the majority. So the archbishop is a very powerful piece. So those churches are very valuable. And also you've got the cities, and the cities have different numbers, I think ranging from like 2 to 4, and you know, tabulate them, you add them all up, and basically that's how much points that duchy is worth for whenever it is swallowed up by a larger duchy. Really, really cool. I appreciated Sid Sackson's acquire. It's not a favorite of mine, but I appreciate its design, especially for its time in 1960. I appreciate area majority, and I appreciate that everything that Reiner Knizia has combined in this game. You never, ever, absolutely ever hear anybody talk about this game, you know? But in my opinion, if you can get past the component quality, if you can get past the fact that it's a little bit of an older design, Rhinelander is a game worth trying out. My number 8 Reiner Knizia game of all time, Rhinelander. Now we move on to my number 7 game, which is a game that is slightly more heard, gets a little bit more love on BGG and in board gaming circles, and does have a recent reprint with great artwork and great component quality, and that is Medici, and it was recently republished by Grail Games. This game has artwork by Vincent Dutrait, one of the best, most prolific board game artists in the entire industry. So you know that the art quality is good, the board looks nice, the cards look nice, the little player boards look nice. This game is an auction bidding game. This is kind of like Reiner Knizia's bread and butter. He's done so many auction games throughout the years, and he always makes each auction game feel different than the other, right? That is what I appreciate about Reiner Knizia. He could take the same thing and you can knock him for doing the same thing, but he'll put a different twist on that same thing over and over again. And auction bidding, for me, it is a fun mechanism. So basically players represent different merchants from around the times of the Medici family, and you're acquiring different goods and loading your ships up with them. And what's interesting is the game goes in 3 rounds, and each round you're building wealth in your ship, and then you're comparing with other players to see who has the most in those different in their ships, like whose ship has the most valuable total sum of goods. And then each player, the player who has the most at the end of each round scores a certain amount of points. The person who has the second scores a little bit less, the person who has the third, and so on and so forth. And then you scrap it. You get rid of all of those goods and you start all over again. However, all those goods, before you get rid of them, you start for each good that you collect in, or each card you collect in each of the respective goods, you start moving up your player piece in this track on the board that keeps track of all 5 of the goods. And whoever has the majority and whoever has a secondary amount in each of these goods, or has advanced their pieces, the second and first furthest along these tracks, are going to score a certain amount of points. But this is cumulative. This does not go away. So while the value of the ships is from round to round and it's contemporaneous, it does not have a permanent nature to it, this keeps on going, right? So as the rounds progress, second and third round, you kind of have an idea of what's more valuable for you and what's more valuable for your opponents. Also, once the tracks get to a certain level, a certain threshold, they start to get you bonus points on top of the rewards that you typically get at the end of each round. You get 5, 10, and 20 point bonuses. So all of a sudden, a good, even if it's intrinsically low value, right? Because each of the goods have a different intrinsic value ranging from 0 to 5. Even if the card number is low, it still might be valuable to you because you're just one spot away from crossing the 10 point or 20 point bonus threshold. And because it's valuable to you, your opponents may not want you to get it at such a cheap price. Really, really cool game. Fun, simple, and quick to play, and again, beautiful. My number 7 Reiner Knizia game, Medici. Now we move on to my number 6, and a couple of weeks ago, this would have been higher on my list. And what's funny is I haven't played any Reiner Knizia games, new Reiner Knizia games lately, but in replaying this and replaying some of my other favorite designs of Reiner Knizia, this has kind of lost a little bit of its value. And this is, again, this one is a game that's highly touted within Reiner Knizia fandom, and it's a game that a lot of people I've seen go on record as saying it's their favorite Reiner Knizia game. It's highly ranked on BGG.com, and that is Ra. This reprint is by Wind Rider Games. This game, Egyptian theme. I love Egyptian theme. Egyptian theme games already have a huge head start in my book. The artwork is nice. The pieces look nice. I like the board. This is, again, an auction bidding game, but involves set collection, right? And different tiles that you're collecting. And some of these tiles, again, this is 3 rounds, kind of like Medici. And it has some similar concepts to Medici as far as game design is concerned. First of all, the 3 rounds have a, temporary nature to them. You have tiles that score you points, but then they get scrapped and discarded at the end of the round. But you also have some tiles that have a more permanent effect and will score you points not only at the end of each round, but they will stay with you from round to round, right? And on top of it all, you have some tiles that stay with you permanently, don't score you the first 2 rounds, but will score you a good amount of points if you build up on them correctly at the end of the 3rd round. So again, it has some of these similar elements to Medici. It has a really, really cool auction bidding mechanism. Medici, while it's a great game, the auction bidding system is very simple. It's a one-time auction. The only real twist in Medici is that you could flip over 1, 2, or 3 cards, and you choose as you flip each one whether or not you want to stop or put it up for auction. But the bidding is super simple. Here in Ra, what's unique about it is that you're not bidding money per se. You're bidding these tokens, these sun disk tokens, and there's 16 of them, each with a number ranging from 1 through 16. And each player, depending on the player count, gets a predetermined set of these sun discs that has certain numbers. So for example, you might get the 2, the 4, and the 7 and the 9, right? And another player might get the 3, the 5, and the 6 and the 8. And the idea is that it's balanced, right? You might have some of the really, really low ones, but you also have some of the really high ones. Or you just might have a whole bunch from within the middle, right? Because the number on the sun disc determines how valuable that sun disc is. And you do have a one-time bid, just like in Medici and lots of other auction games. But what's interesting is that once you lose that bid, you pay that dial, that sun disc, by placing it on the center of the raw board and picking up a sun disc that was already there. So not only are you bidding for the different tiles that, end up being added to the lineup on the raw board, but you also are bidding for that sun disc, which you cannot use on that current round, but you can use in a future or subsequent round. And at the end of the game, your total number of sun discs, the total value of your sun disc, can earn you bonus points if you have the highest number in your sun disc. So that is really, really neat. But it's also really neat because players have specific numbers that they could bid with, so you kind of know when you can win an auction. You can bid a 7 and know that nobody's going to beat you because they only have their 5 discs and they only have their 4 discs. Or you can bid a number that forces a player to bid a number higher than they would want to, even though you're not interested in that bid, right? Because you could bid a 2, and because no player has anything lower than a 6, they're either forced to bid their 6 or higher or give it up to you, right? Because they would gladly pay a 3, but they don't have a 3 available, right? So because you have only one of each of these numbers, there's no change, right? You cannot pay what you actually think something is worth. Instead, you have to use what's available to you and make your decision accordingly. Again, really neat game. It just feels a little too samey for me. I could play this game a couple times a year, the replayability. And I feel like most Reiner Knizia games kind of struggle with replayability because he doesn't do lots of expansions. But this game, to me, truly suffers from replayability, at least in my humble opinion. My number 6, Reiner Knizia game, Ra. And now we move on to my top 5 games of Reiner Knizia. This is the big times, baby. Big time. And my number 5 is another game that people don't talk about, Res Publica. This game here is a very old design. I think its original, iteration was published in 1991. This is a simple card trading game where players are trying to, well, first of all, it's set collection, right? You have these people group cards, and they represent different ancient tribes. You have the Goths, and you have the Lombards, and you have Vikings here, and you have Huns right here. And basically, you're trying to turn in 5 of a kind in order to buy these green victory point cards, which represent settlements. And each of these settlements will give you 3 points at the end of the game. However, every time you get a settlement, it actually entitles you to draw from the civilization deck, right? Because you got these people cards, these people group cards that you're going to be drawing from at the end of each turn. But once you have civilizations, for each civilization, you're entitled to start drawing 1 card from these, I should say from each of these settlements, allows you to draw 1 card from the civilization deck. And these represent different, progresses in technology. You got shipbuilding, and you've got alchemy, and you've got architecture, and you've got metallurgy, right? Architecture and metallurgy. And you're also trying to get 5 of a kind in this set of cards so that you could turn them in for cities, which are even more valuable than settlements. And the city stack starts with a 9-point victory point card, and then it ranges down. It has a couple of 8, a couple of 7, a couple of 6. So the earlier you can get to these cities, the more valuable they will be. Now, what's interesting about this game is that not only are you drawing cards and hoping to get lucky enough to get enough cards of the same kind so you could turn in a set, but you're also doing trading for each round. And each round, you get to make 1 trade offer. But what's interesting is that the way it works is you can only make 1/2 of the trade. And I find that to be fascinating. I love trading games but I've never seen a trading game with that unique mechanism. So for example, you could either make the offer or the request. You could say, I'm willing to give 2 Vikings. And then in clockwise order, each player gets to respond by giving their half of the trade. They would say, well, I'm willing to give 1 Hun. Or you could say what you want. I want 3 Lombards. And then everybody goes around in turn order, again, offering the second half. And if you don't nail it correctly, people might not be interested in your half of the deal, right? So you've got to kind of like pay attention to what people are interested in, see where they're going, maybe take a risk of offering something that nobody had the previous turn, but you're hoping that after they drew cards, they might have on this current turn. Really, really neat mechanism. Again, it creates for lots of fun opportunities. Trading games lend themselves to lots of interaction and lots of fun, lots of controversial smack talk and things of that nature. But again, it's a simple game that plays very, very quickly. This game definitely finishes in like half an hour. This is a filler of a game, but just feels nice and neat. And again, common theme of my top 10 Reiner Knizia games is nobody seems to talk about it. Now we move on to my number 4 Reiner Knizia game of all time, and that is Merchants of Amsterdam. Yet another game that nobody talks about. And as you can hear, I just triggered my Dutch auction timer. This game has a Dutch auction timer as a nice little goodie, a nice little toy inside of it. And this is yet another auction bidding game by Reiner Knizia. And the unique trick here, or the gimmick here, is this Dutch auction timer. And players press the button, and wherever it lines up, whatever number it's on, that's how much you're committed to paying this turn. Now, the cool thing about this game is that, again, it has area majority, something that when Reiner Knizia utilizes, I tend to appreciate. Area majority, where you're trying to have the majority in three different realms, right? You have 3 kind of like games wrapped up in one. You have the shipping track, which has a few different shipping tracks just within that category. You have Amsterdam, which has 4 different districts, and you have the world and the trade offices around the world, and the world is divided into 4 corners, right? The 4 corners of the earth. And you're trying to have majorities within all of those areas, preferably, or at least secondary, be the secondary representative there to score the second most amount of money. And basically, your money is not only what you're bidding with, but it's your victory points at the end of the game. Really, really cool the way he combines it. Neat mechanism that Herbaceous ended up copying later on, where you're basically drafting 3 cards and you have 3 different things you could do with those cards. You can keep one, you can put one up for auction, or you can discard one. But you're making the decision one at a time as you reveal the card, so you don't have the benefit of foreknowledge and seeing what's next. And sometimes you end up regretting your decisions, because hindsight indeed is 20/20. My number 4 Reiner Knizia game of all time, Merchants of Amsterdam. Now we move on to my number 3 Reiner Knizia game of all time, and this game has grown on me the more and more I play it, and that is Lord of the Rings, the cooperative game. First of all, I'm a big fan of the Lord of the Rings intellectual property, the movies, the lore, the story, the theme, the idea behind it, the tropes, and everything it's spawned and influenced ever since its inception. And I like Reiner Knizia's take on it. Very abstractive, very Euro-y, I just love the compelling decisions that people have to make. While it's not compelling from the sense of how much it racks your brain, you're not doing so much calculations and mathematics, but it's compelling because each decision can so impact your future destination, right? Because the challenge of this game is making it through each of these different boards that represent different regions within Middle Earth that are related to the movies and the progression of the story. And in each of these regions, you're just trying to make it through, survive each of them without getting so much corruption that Sauron basically ends up catching up to you. So you have to like walk the fine line and balance and heal and not do too many things that add to your corruption, right? But you also try to make it, you're trying to make it as quick as possible through these adventures, because if you don't go too quickly, you go down through this event track, and the events, they really beat you up. They really, really hurt you. And you don't want them to hurt you. So you want to go as quickly as possible, ideally. Really, really cool game. Each player controls one of the 4 hobbits, and each of the hobbits has a different special ability that makes them different than the other one. I have not had lots of success. My wife and I play this game a lot. We have not had a lot of success winning this game. I've won this game one time, and I played it solo where I was controlling 2 characters, and I barely won by the skin of my teeth. But each time, I enjoy this experience. Even though I'm not successful at it, this is my number 3 Reiner Knizia game of all time, Lord of the Rings. Now we move on to my top 2. And these 2, I would say the number 2 is significantly, well, maybe not too significant, but it has a good lead over number 3. I don't think Lord of the Rings is going to pass number 2 anytime soon. My number 2 game is Hollywood Golden Age. And this is a reprint of Trump Fabric or Hollywood Blockbuster or Dream Factory, which was originally published in the early 2000s. This reprint came out, I think, in late 2018 by Ludanova Games. This is a Spanish board game publisher. I think there's a French distributor as well. I'm not too sure if this is being distributed in North America. You can correct me if I'm wrong. This is a Hollywood-themed game where each player is basically a Hollywood producer, and you're trying to recruit, you know, directors and cameramen and seamstresses and actors and guest stars and all these different, you know, pieces that make up a movie. But you're doing it auction bidding style. Again, auction bidding. And the twist to this game is that when you win an auction, the other opponents split the money that you paid to win that auction amongst themselves. So sometimes losing an auction is beneficial because it helps you for the future auction and it weakens the person who won. Also, the fact that, you know, the money is basically a limited economy where each player starts with a certain amount of money, and the only way that money exchanges hands is within the group of players, right? You don't get money from an external source, from a bank, so to speak. So you kind of have an idea of how much money is out there, and that kind of helps you to some extent calculate when you're making your bids, right? And you're basically trying to have the best movies in 3 different genres, and the genres are very abstracted. It's just basically 3 different colors, red, blue, and green. And you're trying to have the best film in each of these genres to get different awards that will score you points, but you're also trying to have the best film overall, which will get you a certain amount of bonus points from round to round. Really, 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 really neat, really, really cool. Love the auction bidding, love the look of the board. And again, it's just fun to role play and get into the idea of being a Hollywood producer. And now we move on to my number 1 Reiner Knizia game of all time. And again, this is probably a game that a lot of people do not have as their number 1, but it certainly is mine, and that's Taj Mahal. And this was originally published, I think, in the year 2000. It has a really nice reprint by Z-Man Games about 2 years ago. The original copy, I think I've seen pictures of it on BGG. Doesn't look too impressive to me, but definitely aesthetics and the look of the game can help and can go a long way. I like the look of this game. I like the look of the little palaces. I like the look of the board, and just the artwork on the cover. Really, really appreciate it. Basically, players are going through 12 different regions in India, and in each of the regions, they're vying for influence with the different court members and with the market and the mogul of India. And basically, you're doing a little auction bidding, but it's different because it's not a currency per se. It's just cards that are color-coded and have 1 or 2 symbols representing the different areas in which you're trying to have the most influence in. And basically, what's neat about it is that you don't have to necessarily, you know, bulldoze your way through an auction. Instead, you carefully and tactfully play cards one at a time, strategically hoping that when you drop out of the bid, yes, when you drop out of the bid, you have the majority in 1 or more of the 6 different spheres that you're trying to vie for influence over. And if you do, then you get its benefit, which usually means placing down a palace on the region that you guys are currently in. That gives you a point. It could potentially give you more points if you link palaces from one region to another or from one region into multiple other regions. So there's a route network connection building similar to games like Ticket to Ride. But if you win in the market, you get the resources that are on that market's, the symbols or the images of those resources that are on that market's tile. You score a point for each of those symbols. But also, you're getting different resources from some other spots on the board, plus the other markets that you're going to rack up throughout the course of the game. And each time you score a resource, not only do you score a point for that resource, but you score the resources of the same kind that you scored previously in the game, you score them again, a la Castles of Burgundy and Steffenfeld. So again, it's some really, really cool mechanisms that have been reused in some very popular games. And it came here, and I'm not saying that it was innovated here, but definitely it existed here before it did in those games. Taj Mahal, published in 2000. Really, really cool game. Fun, beautiful looking. And again, nobody talks about it. My number one Reiner Knizia game of all time, Taj Mahal. And that's it. Those are my top 10, everybody. Top 10 Reiner Knizia games. It was fun recording this video. It was fun just sharing my appreciation for Reiner Knizia and his designs. Again, one of my favorite designers of all time. Check out that video to see where he ranks. See who I like more than him, if there's anybody. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us here at When Harry Met Board Games. If any of these games catch your interest, comment down below. Let me know which ones. Tell me what's your favorite Reiner Knizia game. Maybe it's something I've already tried, but hasn't really spoken to me. Or maybe it's something I haven't tried at all, and you might be telling me about it for the first time. Thank you so much again. This is Harry from When Harry Met Board Games saying stay safe and stay healthy. Bye-bye.